The mansion was quiet, but it did not feel peaceful. It was one of the biggest houses in the city. White walls, tall gates, expensive cars parked outside. Inside, everything was clean, shiny, and perfect. But behind all that beauty, something dark was hiding. This mansion belonged to a billionaire named Richard Hale. Richard Hale was a powerful man, very rich, very famous. People feared him. People respected him, but no one truly loved him. He believed money gave him the right to do anything. In the backyard of the mansion, there was a large swimming pool. The water looked blue and calm. Sunlight reflected on it like glass. From far away, it looked beautiful, but this pool was not normal. Inside the water were piranhas, deadly fish, sharp teeth, hungry eyes. Only a few people knew about this secret. That afternoon, Richard was hosting a small party. Rich guests stood around, laughing, holding drinks. They talked about business and power. Near the corner stood Mary, his black maid. Mary was a quiet woman. She had worked in this house for many years. She cleaned. She cooked. She followed every order. She never talked back. People rarely noticed her. Standing beside her was her daughter, Lena. Lena was around 12 years old. She had kind eyes and a calm face. She was smart, polite, and respectful. She was visiting her mother after school. Lena looked around the mansion with curiosity, but she stayed close to her mother. She knew she did not belong there. Richard noticed Lena. He did not like children, especially children who did not come from rich families. "Why is she here?" Richard asked coldly. Mary lowered her head. "Sir, she just came to wait for me. She will not disturb anyone." Richard did not reply. His face was already angry. Minutes later, one of the guests slipped on the floor near the pool area. It was not serious, but Richard shouted. "Who cleaned this place?" he yelled. Mary stepped forward. "I did, sir." Richard walked toward her. His guests went silent. "You are useless," he said loudly. "I pay you, and you still make mistakes." Mary tried to speak, but fear stopped her. Lena looked up at Richard. She said softly, "Sir, my mother cleaned it well. Maybe it was just water from the pool." Richard turned his head slowly. The guest gasped. A poor girl was talking to him. "Did you just speak?" Richard asked. Lena stood still. "Yes, sir. I did not mean to." Before she could finish, Richard laughed. "You think you are smart?" he said. "You think you can talk in my house?" Mary begged, "Please, sir. She's just a child." Richard ignored her. He walked closer to Lena. The pool was right behind her. The water looked calm. No one could see what was inside. Richard leaned down and whispered, "This is what happens when poor people forget their place." Suddenly, he pushed her. Hard. Lena lost her balance. Time slowed down. Mary screamed. Guests shouted. Lena's body moved backward. The edge of the pool was right there. Her arms flailed in the air. Richard stood frozen, his face cold. Lena fell. The splash echoed through the backyard. Everyone rushed toward the pool. Mary fell to her knees. "My child," she cried. The water closed over Lena's head. But then, something strange happened. There was no scream, no panique, no wild movement. The water stayed almost calm. Richard's smile faded. He stepped closer to the pool and looked inside. His heart skipped, because Lena was not struggling. She was floating, looking up, calm, watching him. And in that moment, Richard felt something he had not felt in years. Fear, because deep inside, he knew this was not the end. This was only the beginning. For a few seconds, no one moved. The water in the pool slowly settled. Small ripples spread across the surface. The guests stood frozen, holding their breath. The sound of music from inside the mansion felt far away, like it came from another world. Mary crawled toward the pool on her knees. My baby," she cried. Richard Hale stood near the edge, staring down into the water. His chest felt tight. His hand shook slightly, but he quickly hid it behind his back. "She fell," someone whispered. Another guest said, "Why isn't she screaming?" That was the strange part. Lena did not scream. Her body floated just below the surface. Her eyes were open. She looked calm. Too calm. Mary tried to jump into the pool, but the security guards grabbed her. "No," one guard shouted. "Don't go in." Mary screamed. "Let me save my daughter." The guard hesitated. He looked at the pool. He knew the truth. Everyone working in the mansion knew. This pool was dangerous. Richard raised his hand. "Nobody touched the water," he said coldly. His voice sounded strong, but inside his heart was beating fast. He leaned forward again, and then he saw it. Tiny shadows moved under Lena's body. Slow, silent. The piranhas. Some guests stepped back in fear. "Oh my God," a woman whispered. Mary covered her face. She could not watch anymore. But Lena was still not moving, not screaming, not kicking. Richard felt sweat on his neck. That's impossible, he thought. The fish should have attacked by now. Suddenly, Lena moved her hands. The guests gasped. She slowly spread her arms, keeping her body flat on the water. Her movements were careful, gentle, controlled. She was not fighting the water. She was respecting it. Richard's eyes widened. "What is she doing?" he whispered. Lena slowly turned her head. Her eyes met Richard's eyes. There was no fear in them. Only focus. Only calm. This scared Richard more than screaming ever could. Mary cried louder. "Please, someone help her." One guest shouted, "Call the police." Another yelled, "Call an ambulance." Richard snapped. "Everyone stay back." His voice cracked. For the first time, people heard fear in his tone. Lena took a deep breath and slowly moved toward the side of the pool. She did not splash. She did not rush. She moved like she knew exactly what she was doing. The piranhas followed, but they did not attack. They circled, waiting. The guests watched in horror. "This child is brave," one man whispered. "No," another replied. "She is smart." Lena reached the edge of the pool. Her fingers touched the stone. Slowly, she lifted herself up. Just as her leg came out of the water, one fish jumped. A splash. A scream came from the crowd, but the fish missed. Lena pulled herself out and rolled onto the ground. Security rushed forward and dragged her away from the pool. Mary broke free and ran to her daughter. She hugged her tightly, crying uncontrollably. "You're safe, you're safe," Mary whispered again and again. Lena held her mother. Her body trembled now. The fear came late. Richard stepped back. His legs felt weak. He looked around. All eyes were on him now. Not with respect. Not with fear. With judgment. "What kind of man keeps piranhas in a pool?" someone asked. Richard tried to speak, but no words came out. His perfect party was destroyed. His power felt smaller. Lena slowly stood up. She looked at Richard one last time. Her voice was soft, but clear. "You pushed me," she said, "but you did not break me." Those words hit Richard harder than any punch. Sirens could be heard in the distance. Police were coming. Media was coming. And Richard knew something deep inside. This moment would follow him forever. He looked at the pool again. The water was calm, but his life never would be. Lena sat on the grass, wrapped in a white towel. Her hand was shaking now. The fear she held inside the pool was slowly coming out. Mary held her close, rocking her back and forth like she did when Lena was a baby. "It's okay," Mary whispered. "You are safe now." Police officers arrived and started asking questions. Guests spoke at the same time, all saying different things. The mansion that once felt powerful now felt small and noisy. Richard Hale stood alone near the glass doors. He watched everything, but no one looked at him the same way anymore. An officer walked toward Mary. "Ma'am, how did your daughter survive?" Mary looked confused. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I just prayed." The officer looked at Lena. Lena slowly lifted her head. Her eyes were tired, but clear. "I stayed calm," she said softly. The officer raised his eyebrows. "That's all." Lena nodded. Piranhas attack when they feel panic. Fast moves scare them. The people around went silent. "She knows about piranhas?" someone whispered. Mary looked at her daughter in shock. "Lena, how do you know this?" Lena looked down at her hands. "I read books," she said. "I watched videos at the library." Mary's eyes filled with tears. Richard listened from a distance. His stomach turned. A child, a poor maid's daughter, smarter than him. The paramedics checked Lena. She had small cuts on her arm, but nothing serious. One of them smiled. "You're very brave," he said. Lena shook her head. "I was just thinking." The police officer wrote notes quickly. "Did Mr. Hale push you?" he asked. Lena looked at Richard. Richard met her eyes. For a moment, he wanted to look away, but he didn't. "Yes," Lena said. He pushed me. The words were simple, but they were heavy. Mary gasped. Guests murmured. Richard's face went pale. That's a serious accusation, the officer said. I know, Lena replied. That's why I'm telling the truth. Silence fell again. A reporter had already arrived at the gate. Cameras flashed. The story was spreading fast. Richard finally spoke. This is my property, he said loudly. I can explain everything. No one listened. Another officer stepped forward. Sir, please remain here. For the first time in his life, Richard felt trapped. As the chaos continued, Lena's mind went somewhere else. She remembered her teacher at school, the one who told her, knowledge is power, even when you have nothing. She remembered long afternoons in a library while her mother worked late. Books about animals, about survival, about staying calm under danger. That knowledge saved her life. Mary kissed Lena's forehead. I didn't know you carried all this inside you, she said. Lena smiled weakly. I didn't know I would need it today. Richard overheard those words. They burned. Later, Lena was taken to the ambulance. Mary sat beside her, holding her hand. As the doors closed, Lena looked back. Richard was still standing there, alone, surrounded by police. For the first time, Lena saw fear in his eyes. Not fear of law, fear of truth. The ambulance drove away. Sirens faded into the distance. The guests slowly left. Whispers followed them. That man is finished. He crossed the line. Richard stayed where he was. His pool, his mansion, his money. None of it felt powerful now. A police officer approached him again. Sir, we will need you to come with us. Richard opened his mouth. No words came out, because deep inside, he knew something worse than punishment was coming. The world now knew who he really was, and a small, quiet girl had exposed him. Not with anger, not with violence, but with knowledge. And this was only the beginning. By evening, the story was everywhere. Police cars stood outside the mansion. Red and blue lights flashed against the white walls. Reporters filled the street. Cameras pointed at the gates. People shouted questions. Inside the house, Richard Hale sat alone on a leather chair. For the first time, his mansion felt cold. A police officer stood near him. You are not under arrest yet, the officer said, but you are not free to leave. Richard nodded slowly. His mouth was dry. Outside, a reporter spoke loudly into a camera. A billionaire is accused of pushing a black maid's daughter into a pool filled with deadly fish. Those words echoed in Richard's mind. Accused, billionaire, black maid's daughter. He had always believed money protected him. It always had before. But tonight felt different. At the hospital, Mary sat beside Lena's bed. Machines beeped softly. Lena was resting now, her eyes closed. Her face looked peaceful, but small cuts on her arms told the real story. A nurse smiled gently. She is strong, she said. Mary held her daughter's hand. She has always been strong, she replied. A woman from Child Services entered the room. She spoke calmly. We need to ask a few questions. Mary nodded. Back at the mansion, Richard's phone would not stop ringing. Business partners, lawyers, friends, then silence. One by one, calls stopped coming. His assistant finally answered one call and then looked at him. Sir, the board wants an emergency meeting. Richard stood up quickly. Tell them I'll call back. The assistant hesitated. They already voted. Richard froze. Voted for what? To remove you as CEO. The words hit him like a fall. No, Richard said. That's impossible. The assistant looked away. They said the company image is damaged. Richard laughed once. It sounded empty. My image? He whispered. He walked to the window and looked outside. Protesters had gathered. Some held signs. Justice for Lena. Power does not mean humanity. Richard clenched his fists. He remembered every time he looked down on others. Every insult. Every cruel joke. He never thought it would come back. But it did. At the hospital, a reporter tried to speak to Mary. Why did you work for a man like him? The reporter asked. Mary looked tired but calm. Because I needed to feed my child, she said. Not everyone has choices. Her words spread fast online. People shared them. They felt real. Late that night, Richard's lawyer arrived. This is serious, the lawyer said. Witnesses, video clips. The girl's statement. Richard's voice shook. Fix it. The lawyer shook his head. This time, I don't know if I can. Richard's face went pale. He thought of Lena's calm eyes. Her steady voice. You pushed me, but you did not break me. Those words haunted him. The next morning, newspapers showed his face. Not smiling. Not powerful. Ashamed. His company's lost value. Sponsors pulled out. Old employees spoke up. Stories came out. Stories of insults. Stories of threats. Stories of cruelty. The world was seeing the real Richard Hale. Meanwhile, Lena woke up. She opened her eyes slowly and smiled when she saw her mother. You scared me, Mary said softly. Lena replied, I scare myself too. A teacher from Lena's school visited. You are very brave, she said. You taught many people a lesson. Lena looked confused. I just told the truth. Back at the mansion, Richard packed a bag. Not because he wanted to leave. Because he had no choice. Police escorted him out through a side door to avoid the cameras. As he stepped outside, someone shouted, Do you regret it? Richard stopped. For the first time, he did not know the answer. Because deep inside, he realized something painful. His downfall did not start when the girl fell into the pool. It started the moment he believed he was better than others. And now, everything was falling. The courtroom was silent. Every seat was full. Reporters sat in the back, writing fast. Cameras waited outside. The air felt heavy, like everyone was holding their breath. Mary sat on one side, holding Lena's hand. Lena looked small on the wooden bench. She wore a simple dress. No muck-up. No fear on her face. Just quiet strength. Across the room sat Richard Hale. He looked very different now. No expensive suit. No proud as Maid. His shoulders were low. His face was tired. His eyes were empty. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The case began. The lawyer spoke about power. About cruelty. About a man who believed money made him untouchable. Then Lena was called to speak. Mary squeezed her hand. Just tell the truth, she whispered. Lena stood up slowly. She looked around the room. So many eyes. So much attention. She took a breath. He pushed me, she said. Her voice was soft, but it filled the room. He was angry. He wanted to scare us. He thought he could. People shifted in their seats. Lena continued. When I fell into the pool, I was scared. But I stayed calm. Because fear can kill you faster than animals. The judge listened closely. And how did this make you feel? The judge asked. Lena thought for a moment. Small, she said. Like my life did not matter. Mary closed her eyes. Tears fell down her face. Then something unexpected happened. Richard stood up. His lawyer tried to stop him. Sit down, he whispered. But Richard did not listen. He took a step forward. Then another. The room gasped as he walked toward Mary and Lena. Sir, the judge warned. Richard stopped in the middle of the courtroom. His voice shook. Please, he said. Let me speak. The judge hesitated, then nodded. Richard turned to Mary. He looked at her. Really looked at her. For the first time, he saw a mother. Not Maid. I was wrong, he said. I treated you like nothing. Mary did not answer. Then Richard turned to Lena. His knees trembled. Slowly, he knelt. The courtroom exploded in whispers. A billionaire on his knees. I beg you, Richard said. I am sorry. His voice broke. I thought power meant control. I thought fear meant respect. Tears filled his eyes. I was wrong. Lena looked at him quietly. She did not smile. She did not cry. She just watched. You almost killed me, she said. Richard nodded. I know. You hurt my mother, Lena continued. Richard lowered his head. I know. The judge watched closely. So why are you sorry now? Lena asked. That question cut deep. Richard opened his mouth. No answer came. Because the truth was painful. He was sorry because he lost everything. His job, his respect, his power. Mary finally spoke. Her voice was calm, but strong. You never saw us, she said. You saw workers. You saw poor people, not humans. Richard whispered, I see now. Mary shook her head. Seeing late does not erase pain. Silence filled the room again. The judge cleared his throat. This court will decide punishment, he said. But forgiveness is personal. Richard looked up at Lena one last time. Can you forgive me? He asked. Lena stood still. Then she said, forgiveness is not words. It is change. Richard closed his eyes. The judge ordered him back to his seat. As Richard walked away, he looked smaller than ever. The trial ended for the day. Outside, reporters waited. Did he really beg? Someone shouted. Yes, another replied. But begging did not save him. Mary and Lena walked out together. Cameras flashed, but Lena did not look at them. She looked up at her mother. Are you okay? Mary asked. Lena nodded. I am strong. Mary smiled through tears. Behind them, Richard watched for the courtroom door. For the first time in his life, he understood something. Some mistakes are so big, even begging cannot undo them. And this was not the end. Justice was still coming. The courtroom was full again. But this time, the feeling was different. There was no shock, no noise, only waiting. Richard Hale sat quietly at the table. His hands were folded. His head was down. The man who once ruled rooms with his voice now looked like a shadow of himself. Mary and Lena sat together on the other side. Lena held a small notebook in her hands. It was the same notebook she used to write notes from the library. Knowledge had saved her once. It gave her strength again. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The judge looked at Richard for a long moment before speaking. This court has reviewed all evidence, the judge said slowly. Witnesses, recordings, and statements. Richard swallowed hard. The court finds Richard Hale guilty. A soft sound moved through the room. Mary closed her eyes. Lena held her breath. Guilty of assault, the judge continued. Guilty of abuse of power. Guilty of endangering a child's life. Richard felt the floor disappear under him. The judge spoke again. You will serve prison time. Your assets will be reviewed. Your companies will face investigation. Richard's lawyer touched his arm. It was over. No money could stop this. No name could save him. Outside the courtroom, reporters rushed to tell the world. Karma has spoken. One headline read. That evening, Richard sat alone in a holding room. The walls were plain. The chair was hard. There were no paintings, no guards showing respect. Just silence. He thought about the mansion, the pool, the moment he pushed Lena. He whispered to himself, why did I do it? There was no answer. Meanwhile, at Mary's small apartment, something new was happening. Neighbors brought food. Teachers sent messages. People knocked on the door just to say one thing. We support you. Lena sat at the table, doing homework. Mary watched her daughter and smiled softly. You are famous now, Mary said. Lena shook her head. I just want to study. A few days later, a letter arrived. It was from a foundation. They offered Lena a full scholarship, education, support, a future. Mary read the letter twice. Her hands trembled. This is for you, she said. Lena hugged her. This is for us. At the same time, Richard was taken to prison. The gates closed behind him with a loud sound. No reportes. No cameras. No aplausos. Just reality. Other prisoners looked at him. Weren't you rich? One asked. Richard did not reply. For the first time, he was just another man. Days passed. Then weeks. Richard cleaned floors now. He followed orders. He waited in line. He remembered Mary. How she cleaned his house every day. How he never thanked her. One night, Richard sat on his bed and cried. Not for his money. Not for his mansion. But for the man he could have been. Back outside, Lena stood on a school stage. She spoke to students. Her voice was calm. Being calm saved my life, she said. But kindness can save the world. People listened. Teachers clapped. Mary watched with pride. She was no longer just a maid. She was a mother of a strong daughter. The world had changed for both sides. One rose. One fell. That is how karma works. It does not rush. It waits. And when it speaks, everyone listens. Years passed quietly. Time did what money never could. It changed everything. The mansion was sold. The tall gates were gone. The white walls were dull. The famous pool was empty, covered with leaves and dust. No one spoke about it anymore. But people still remember the story. Not because of the billionaire. Because of the girl. Lena was no longer a child. She walked across a college campus now, carrying books under her arm. She smiled often. She studied hard. She never forgot where she came from. Mary worked at a small community center. She helped other mothers find jobs. She helped children learn to read. She was no longer invisible. One afternoon, Lena was invited to speak at a small event. The room was full of students and parents. She stood at the microphone. Calm, confident. I want to tell you a story, she said. Not about fear, but about choice. The room went quiet. On one day, someone tried to show power by hurting me, Lena continued. But I learned something important. She paused. Real power is not pushing someone down. Real power is staying human. People nodded. Some wiped tears from their eyes. After the event, Lena walked outside with her mother. You spoke beautifully, Mary said. Lena smiled. You taught me. Far away, behind gray walls, Richard Hale sat alone. His hair was gray now. His hands were rough. He had lost track of time. One day a letter arrived. It was short. It spoke about Lena, about her education, about her work helping others. Richard read it slowly. His hand shook. He closed his eyes. For the first time, he smiled. Not a proud smile. A sad one. I'm glad, he whispered. Years later, Richard was released. No cameras guatif. No reporters came. He walked out with a small bag. The world did not recognize him anymore. He found a simple job. He lived in a small room. People spoke to him like any other man. He accepted it. One day, he walked past a community center. He stopped. Through the window, he saw Mary, helping children, laughing, alive. He did not go inside. He did not speak. He just nodded to himself and walked away. Lena stood at a library later that evening, looking at old books. The same place where she once learned how to stay calm. Knowledge saved her life. Kindness shaped it. She opened her notebook and wrote one line. Never let hate decide who you become. Mary read it later and smiled. The past was painful, but it did not control him anymore. Some stories end with revenge. This one ended with growth, with understanding, with a lesson. Power without humanity destroys. Kindness without fear builds. And sometimes, the smallest voice teaches the loudest lesson.